Hey guys, it's me Andrew, your favorite Canadian YouTuber, and welcome to my very first official video game review video. Today, I will be reviewing Arzette, the Jewel of Faramore for PlayStation 5. I've been looking forward to playing this game ever since it was announced, and I couldn't be more honored to review it. Before we begin, I'd like to give a very special thanks to this game's PR team at Limited Run Games for sending me the early review copy. I had tons of fun playing it a week before release. Anyway, Arzette, the Jewel of Faramore is basically a retro throwback to the infamous CDI Zelda games I'm sure you've all at least heard of, but this game is actually good. That's about the shortest I could possibly sum it up. But now let's go into an in-depth review. The game centers around Arzette, a courageous warrior princess who ventures on a quest to collect all the shattered pieces of the Jewel of Faramore so she can use it to defeat the evil Dimer who has returned to wreak havoc on Faramore. Along the way, Arzette meets a lot of very interesting characters that may look or sound familiar to some of you, most of which are willing to provide something that'll help Arzette with her quest if she helps them out as well, no matter how ridiculous their requests are. With a game like this, you'll never know what to expect will happen next. Not to mention, some of these characters are actually voiced by the original voices of Link and Zelda from the original CDI games, and not to mention some unexpected guest stars as well. Now, fun fact, the main developer of this game, Seth Fulkerson, aka Dopley, is also the same guy who worked on the CDI Zelda remasters, and I actually decided to play one of them in preparation for Arzette, just to get myself a little more familiar with the main source of inspiration and whatnot. Now, gameplay-wise, obviously Arzette was designed to play much better than the original CDI Zelda games, maintaining their iconic feel while also being playable and fun. If you played the old CDI games and this game, you'll notice there are quite a few quality of life improvements that weren't present in the old CDI games, such as a flashing invincibility frame when you get hurt, properly mapped button controls, collecting currency simply by touching it instead of having to hit it with your sword, etc. Though one thing from the original CDI games that remains present in this game is that you cannot jump down through floors or platforms, but thankfully the levels are much better designed in a way that actually works with that particular mechanic. Not to mention, the levels are all hand-painted similarly to the old CDI games, but it's much easier to navigate and tell apart the terrains and backgrounds, and I'd say they look quite nice. Aside from all that, the gameplay is very smooth and has just the right flow to it. I'll admit, the combat does require a fair amount of precision, but once you get into the flow, you'll adapt to it in no time. Not to mention, sometimes the game has an interesting color-based enemy attack system that kind of reminds me of Violet Wisteria. I'm sure there are other games that use that similar method or mechanic, but that's the only game I personally know of that it reminds me of. Now, on another note, the animated cutscenes definitely capture the style and feel of the classic CDI games almost perfectly, though I'll admit there is a bit of a weird inconsistency in quality and frame rate between cutscenes. Some of them are very smooth and even appear almost 3D-like in their movements, while others are very choppy and static, even more so than the original CDI games. Not to mention, Arzette's design tends to change in different cutscenes, though I think the obvious reason is because the game's cutscenes were made by multiple people, hence all the different styles and character designs. I do know that the YouTube poop legend Jimmy Davis actually worked on some cutscenes for this game, which is pretty awesome. Anyway, back to the gameplay aspects. I'll admit there is a little bit of a learning curve and some minor annoyances around the beginning of the game, such as those green tree stump things that throw axes at you. However, once you got the shield ring from the next level, they're not so bad at all. Now, there were a couple points in the game where I got pretty stumped for a while, such as an old man who wanted me to bring him 4 different colored rocks, which took me a while to figure out, and a fancy frog guy voiced by Vinesauce who's really picky about his meals. That quest took me forever and was kind of a pain in the arse to figure out. I gotta say, playing this game a week early before its release wasn't that easy since there were no walkthroughs or anything to help me out at the time. However, I was able to find every single hidden item and secret in the game on my own without any outside help, although it did require quite a bit of abstract thinking in order to find everything. There's a good chance you probably wouldn't expect this kind of game to require you to really use a good chunk of your brain power to figure things out. Then again, I also didn't expect this kind of game to have some genuinely emotional moments, which I won't spoil. No doubt this game is full of surprises in more ways than one. Anyway, aside from the game's main objectives and numerous side quests, there's also a handful of mini-games you'll encounter once in each level, some of which are directly based on hotel Hotel Mario, where you ride elevators and shut all the doors on each floor. However, if you fail one of these minigames, either by dying or the timer runs out, it disappears and you can't try it again unless you restart the whole level and run through it until you find it again. Honestly, I think that might be one of the biggest flaws or annoyances in this game, but thankfully most of the game isn't quite as frustrating as that. Well, maybe not until you try the harder modes like Hero Mode and Classic Mode, where you have to crouch to pause the game just like the old CDI games, and not to mention you get locked in a crouch position every time you press down instead of holding it, which I found rather annoying at times, but it only happens in Classic Mode and none of the other modes. Now speaking of which, during my Hero Mode run, I actually discovered a glitch where I got purple magic early, which allowed me to bypass all 3 color gates and access all areas of the game, which you normally wouldn't be able to do until you obtain the Sword of Faramore near the end of the game. Basically, after you get the Sword Wave or Smart Gun, you save and quit the game, and then play through Boss Rush Mode, which you unlock after beating the game once. After that, return to your game and you got instant purple magic. This neat little trick was very helpful on my road to 100% completing the game, especially on the harder difficulties, and it made earning that shiny platinum trophy much less of a chore. Out of all the bugs in this game, this is one glitch that I really hope the devs don't patch up, though there is a possibility that they might in the future, but no way of knowing for sure. Oh, not to mention, while this early purple magic glitch allows you to bypass all 3 color gates very early on, you're still required to obtain the Sword of Faramore in order to defeat Dimer. Please skip to this timestamp if you don't want the final boss to be spoiled for you. When I use the early purple magic glitch to try and fight Dimer early, my sword doesn't do anything to him. So yeah, you still need to get the Sword of Faramore. Sorry to all the speedrunners out there who thought about doing this at first. I'm sure we all had the same idea. Oh, and not to mention the I am mean looking librarian guy on the top shelf locked behind a purple gate. For some reason, the game wouldn't let me talk to him with the smart sword either until I got the Sword of Faramore and obtained purple magic the way the game intended me to. No doubt I found that particularly strange. You know what, I think I've talked enough about that. Alright, so overall, while this game may have some little flaws, even the most annoying ones didn't stop me from enjoying this game all the way through. I love just about everything about this game, from its fun, addictive gameplay to its beautiful, nostalgic style, to all its amusing, lovable, and memorable characters. And of course, I can't forget to mention the game's banger soundtrack, which Jake Silverman did an amazing job with, as it really captures the funky vibes of the original CDI Zelda game's music. I know the year's still young, but so far, this is definitely one of my top favorite games of the year. If I had to rate this game, I'd give it a solid 9 out of 10. Would I recommend buying this game? Absolutely. The game is available on all platforms, including Steam, Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo Switch, and it only costs $20. At that price, it's definitely worth it. Not to mention, there's even physical copies available for pre-order on Limited Run Games website, but only until March 17th, so better act fast if you want one. In fact, I love this game so much, I even decided to pre-order the Collector's Edition for Nintendo Switch in a bundle with the CDI-inspired pink controller and alongside the Shantae and Biz Collector's Edition, all in the same order. For those of you who are interested, I'll provide a link to the official store page in the description below. Thank you all for watching my review of Arzette, the Jewel of Faramore. What are your thoughts on it? Do you plan on getting this game? Please let me know in the comments below.